I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Camillo Gonsalves, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade, Commerce and Information Technology of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you, Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. St. Vincent and the Grenadines would like to begin by aligning itself fully with essentially all of the statements that have come before, and in particular, the statements from our CARICOM colleagues, Jamaica, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Ministers of Antigua and Barbuda, the Bahamas, Barbados, and although the distinguished Foreign Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has yet to speak, I'm sure that I can comfortably align myself with what he will say. I'd also like to endorse very strongly what was said by the Foreign Minister of the Seychelles, particularly in casting small island developing states not simply as a small island developing states, but essentially as large ocean developing states beyond the rocks on which we live, essentially. St. Vincent and the Grenadines applauds New Zealand for its decision to focus the attention of the UN Security Council on the peace and security challenges facing small island developing states. New Zealand is an island state surrounded by small island developing states, and it has demonstrated strong commitment and understanding to the specificities and challenges confronting SIDS. I would like to salute you as well, Minister, for your own display of stamina today, as we have gone through the luncheon interval and as a threat to your own food security. I see that faces around the table have all changed except for you, and I salute your stamina in that regard. New Zealand's use of its tenure as President of the Security Council to highlight SIDS is of particular importance, given the Council's historical indifference or antipathy to small island states and our peace and security challenges. While the Council has from time to time pronounced at various levels on matters involving SIDS, it is nonetheless true to say that small island developing states, our issues and perspectives have been by and large excluded from serious and sustained consideration by the Security Council. Within the Caribbean region, with the exception of Haiti, which has benefited from missions and multilateral engagement by this body, the Council has occasionally become engaged when hegemonic dramas are enacted on island stages, as in the case of the 1983 invasion of Grenada or the Cuban Missile Crisis. However, other significant incidents, ranging from election violence in one CARICOM state which claimed over 800 lives in the 1980s, to Hurricane Ivan's 2004 multi-island swath of death and destruction, many episodes have come and gone with barely an acknowledgement from the Council. To date, the Council remains silent on the obvious threat to peace and security posed by the Dominican Republic's decision to forcibly expel thousands of individuals born within its borders, and save and except in those rare instances when an island happens to be the fulcrum upon which global powers balance, we are ignored. Indeed, one of the most compelling arguments in support of comprehensive reform of the Council is its demonstrated failure to adapt to a world where SIDS are significant multilateral actors with unique perspectives and issues that merit consideration from all levels of diplomacy. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has put its name forward as a candidate for the Council in 2020 to 2021 because we believe that we have practical lessons to teach and perspectives to share in contributing to peace and societal harmony without a surfeit of cash or weapons to throw at potential problems. We are candidates also because in the history of the United Nations, only 8 small island developing states have ever served on the Security Council, because only 3 of 14 CARICOM states have ever brought their perspectives to bear as members of this chamber, and because a full 40% of the countries that have never served on the Council are small island developing states. The result is that overwhelmingly, even during the few times that the Council formally considers a small island developing state, there are no small island developing states on the Council to add context and perspective to the deliberations. Mr. President, the special threats to peace and security in SIDS and their solutions must be understood through the prisms of size, openness, and exogenous influence. Hurricane Ivan was a regional disaster in the United States, but a national disaster in Jamaica, Cuba, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. Flash flooding, like the type that occurred in the Eastern Caribbean in late 2013, was relatively brief and isolated, but caused death, damage, and instability in St. Lucia, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, damage from which we are still recovering. Climate change, we've all discussed today, and it's obviously a threat, but it is not simply a multiplier of threats to peace and security. It is a grave and destabilizing threat in and of itself. Mr. President, a relatively small, poorly armed gang of thugs in a large developed country may present a localized or municipal law enforcement challenge. In a small island developing state, that same gang's power multiplied exponentially, and its potential to destabilize societies is immense, particularly in states with modestly equipped, unarmed constabularies with limited experience in thwarting transnational crime. Additionally, unlike most of the challenges confronted by this Council, SIDS are probably unique in being beset by largely exogenous threats. The causes of climate change, transnational crime, illicit small arms trafficking, resource theft, cross-border threats, and global financial instability are all beyond our borders. This is an important factor in the Council's consideration of what recommendations and measures are available to maintain peace and preserve security in SIDS. Mr. President, as we speak, almost half of the countries in the Caribbean community are either participating in or recently emerging from painfully externally orchestrated structural adjustment programs. We are collectively one of the most heavily indebted regions in the world, with high rates of unemployment, particularly among our youth. In the aftermath of the global economic and financial crisis, our rates of economic growth have been anemic at best. The combustible post-crisis mix of low growth, youth unemployment, and fiscal straitjackets has already fueled global unrest and instability elsewhere, with tremendous negative consequences for international peace and security. SIDS are not immune from this threat. Indeed, the apparent belief that the instability besetting other regions will somehow bypass SIDS is rooted in wishful thinking, neglect, and a misplaced faith in the stereotype of islands as paradises populated by carefree carousers. However, this stereotype is belied by the facts rooted in low growth, high debt, high unemployment, high murder rates, and a lack of fiscal or policy space to engage in transformative social investments. These facts point to a different and less and unlikely outcome of continued multilateral neglect. Mr. President, the Council's mandate is not simply to restore international peace and security, but to maintain it and to prevent instability through both military and non-military means. Today's open debate must serve as a wake-up call for a Security Council that has too often turned its back on the needs and views of SIDS. This Council must formally determine that climate change, transnational crime, non-state actors, and economic strangulation pose special and specific threats to peace and security among small island developing states. It must then consider what recommendations and measures are within the scope of its powers. At a minimum, they must encompass restraints on the actions of external state actors and empower SIDS from an economic and policy level to confront internal challenges effectively. And all the while, Mr. President, taking on board fully the Bahamas' very correct caution against the Council usurping the role or authority of existing multilateral bodies that are grappling with these issues in an inclusive and transparent manner. Mr. President, these issues and those delineated by those who have spoken before me are not academic or theoretical exercises in divining a laundry list of potential challenges on some distant horizon. They are real, existing, and intensifying threats to our peace and security. Our challenges, however, are neither intractable nor insurmountable. They are imminently solvable. Yet all that is needed for these multifaceted threats to become complex and contagious sources of global instability is the inaction of powerful multilateral partners. Today, there are over 50 countries with over 50 million people that are expecting this Council to fulfill the letter and spirit of its charter obligations. Please do not let us down. I thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency Minister Gonsalves for his statement.